Welcome to the first Canadian International Virtual Air Show, and we sure hope it's the last. What a year this has been. We also hope that you are well through this pandemic. I'm about 300 kilometers east of the lakeshore in Toronto, where for over 70 years, this event has inspired millions to fly, including a young Amelia Earhart. We can't wait to share some of these stories with you and take you behind the scenes and give you an insider's view of what it takes to put this event on. From performers and aircraft to the control tower at Pearson, even up to the CN Tower for a different perspective, all coming up in this broadcast. And of course, I am welcoming you on behalf of the entire team in Toronto. All those red shirts, those hardworking volunteers and staff that are missing this weekend as much as you are. Thanks to Match Productions, you can see the morning setup. This was shot during a Friday rehearsal, preparing for a long but rewarding weekend. And behind the lakeshore, where all of the hospitality is provided for this great event, is the Canadian National Exhibition. The CNE, our sponsor, who like us had to convert to a virtual experience, and we hope you've had a chance this year to enjoy some of their great online events too. That includes some of your favorite CNE performers in home concerts, even busker videos and recipes to get your fair food fix so that you can enjoy the corn dogs with pickle or the deep fried butter or even the deep fried red velvet Oreo cookie. Let's begin, shall we, in the air with the United States Air Force Thunderbirds at another waterfront show, and a rare opportunity to not only hear the narration but actually get inside the cockpit and hear the communications between the pilots as they fly the Great Pacific Air Show over Surf City, USA, Huntington Beach, California.
Hey Toronto Airshow fans, this is Captain Kyle Oliver, Thunderbird 6, hoping you all have a great digital event today. From all of us here at the United States Air Force Thunderbirds, I wanted to say we're wishing you the best, and sit back, relax, because it's showtime.
All the way from Nellis Air Force Base and known to all the world as the Thunderbirds!
Lines on top, 73150, back in with the ball.
A rare opportunity to go inside the cockpit.
Gone, ready now. Come on, the thread, ready now. 400.
Calls for the four diamond pilots to perform simultaneous sail-on rolls in close formation.
Off, ready now. Arrow! Still nose up, right turn.
Now look back to the right
so.
and find Thunderbirds 5 and 6 teamed up this time to create a mirror image in their trademark.
Right turn a little more full. Ready now. Good one,
Look in front and to your left. You'll see the Thunderbirds once again ensure the forward.
Wait, 14.
Watch closely as they perform one of their most difficult maneuvers, the trail to diamond. Roll.
Gone, ready now. Nose down.
Surf City, that was Thunderbird 5 sneaking up on you with the sound of freedom. Ladies and gentlemen, look to your left as Major Kern will demonstrate the exceptional climbing performance of the F-16 as she climbs 15,000 feet straight up.
Man, all that beach footage reminds me of just how little sun I've managed to get this year without air shows. Huntington Beach and the United States Air Force Thunderbirds at the Great Pacific Air Show, which also, like the Canadian International Air Show, had to cancel this year. However, the Thunderbirds will be live over Canada, over London, Ontario, next weekend. Airshow London's Skydrive is an opportunity to see them and the other United States Air Force demonstration teams, one of which is coming up in just a moment. But first, I want to remind you to become an insider to this event. The Canadian International Air Show, CIAS.org, is where to go to become an insider. What that allows you and what that you will benefit from is discounted prices for next year, valuable information on some changes that will be made to the air show down at the waterfront, some physical changes that are being talked about, performer lists for next year, and information before anybody else gets it as an insider. CIAS.org, and you will benefit by being an insider to this great event. The A-10 demonstration team, that's right, it's going to get ugly now, in a very good way. Of course, Cody and the rest of his team, Major Cody Shiv Wilton, down in Arizona at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base, invited us along for a rehearsal. So again, inside and outside, an insider's view of the A-10 demonstration. Thank you, Major Cody Shiv Wilton and the rest of the A-10 demonstration team down in Arizona over the desert, which frankly has left me just a little bit parched. And it's time for me to remind you that the official brew of the Canadian International Air Show is Barnstorming Brewing.
1012. Bombs away! Mission accomplished.
Barnstormer Brewing, the official beer of the Canadian International Virtual Air Show, and of course are a great partner of the Canadian International Air Show. The official beer, again, which you can get at your local LCBO, you can get at the local beer store, or you can get it online. Barnstormerbrewing.com is where to go online to get a cold one if you'd like. I should probably put this down now for the remainder of the broadcast, even though I don't really want to. And by the way, they also sponsor performer Brent Handy. Brent grew up in Wyvale, Ontario. It's a small town of about 530 kilometers north of Barrie, with no family background in aviation to get him motivated. He stumbled into this himself. This is something he wanted to do. He didn't have a mom or a dad who were aviators. He earned a glider and a private pilot's license through the Air Cadet scholarships. He built up quite a career, too, flying as a Snowbird 9 in the 2012-2013 season, continued as their standards, evaluation and training pilot, and loves the water, too, not just getting low down to show center and around the fireboat. Right now, he is taking time with his family to sail around the world. His kids, his wife, his entire family share his love of adventure. Another partner to the air show is Falcon Environmental Services. They manage effective ecological management of wildlife at airports like Pearson, which is a big job. And they participate in endangered wildlife conservation efforts throughout the country and in the U.S. And they are always a hit at the waterfront when they bring the birds down, and on the flight line at Pearson when they bring the birds to some of our performers. Canadian Forces Skyhawks, who sadly had to cancel their season, did send us some very exciting video, though, over Toronto, and you'll get a chance to see how Canada's elite parachute team, the Skyhawks, pull off some of these iconic maneuvers, the strength, the skill, the professionalism that it takes.
Hello, Canadian International Airshow fans. This is Master Corporal Heiden from the Skyhawks. Sorry to say that the airshow was canceled. Hope everyone is staying safe, and we hope to see you next year.
Jumping out of a perfectly working airplane. They're brave souls, and they are really good at it, the Skyhawks, and we thank them for that very special video. However, it's not something I've ever really wanted to do. I get it. I understand the bravery, and I mentioned that back at the beginning of the season with our socially distant air show when all this started, and then something happened with the Skyhawks to where they felt the need to put a hashtag up, Rick P needs to jump. With this rather colorful, thank you, Eric Dummigan, this wonderful meme that they've attached to it. And no, I don't. I don't need to do it. It's not on my bucket list. I don't have the courage. Thank you very much. But I do appreciate them. As we do the Navy as well. I know it's an air show. The Canadian International Air Show is down at the waterfront, though. And that means we need the services of the Royal Canadian Navy. The Navy is a very important part of the Canadian International Air Show annually by providing emergency response support. They're RIBs, these rapid-moving vessels, and if ever the Navy has a ship in the Great Lakes, they proudly display it on the air show weekend directly in front of the exclusive air show zone. In 2010, the HMCS Fredericton did that, and in 2011, the HMCS Shawinigan. And it is impressive to see these heavier ships, these bigger vessels, I must use the right terms, the vessels do these impressive maneuvers in front of the crowd. Always great to include the Navy, and we thank them for their support over the years. We enjoy reading your comments throughout the broadcast and want to remind you to become an insider to the Canadian International Air Show. Just go online to CIAS.org and get that done to be eligible for big discounts on next year's show and find out who's coming and other news related to the event. That's CIAS.org to become an insider. In fact, our next guest is on that invite list, and they're going to give us an inside tour from Barksdale Air Force Base down in Louisiana, as if this year wasn't bad enough. Laura ripped through Louisiana, as we know from the news. They're recovering now, and before all of that happened, we got to get an insider's tour of the Buff, the big ugly, the B-52.
Toronto Air Show, welcome to the B-52.
Hello B-52 fans, I'm Major Timothy Humple from the 343rd Bomb Squadron. I'm going to start your tour off here with the front end of the jet. These two blisters that you normally see will be closed, but when in flight we have two cameras that look forward and that provides the eyes for the weapons officers who sit in the downstairs compartment, their eyes to the world. We have a forward-looking infrared on one side, and we have a low-light camera for the other one. And as we continue back along, you're always going to notice that you have the red ejection triangle down here because both individuals who sit downstairs will be ejecting down while the rest of the crew gets to eject upwards. As we continue along the back of the B-52, we get to the wheel well, and in here you're going to notice kind of two things. Number one, as big as this airplane is, the crew compartment is much smaller than you'd actually expect. There's really only one spot I can stand up in for frame of reference. I stand at 6'2", and that's within the ladder well. As we move through the wheel well itself, you're going to notice that there's a catwalk that runs the entire way from the crew compartment to the tail of the aircraft. So if a crew member needs to do a bomb bay check, if certain pieces of equipment fail, they'll literally have to crawl across that catwalk over the tubing to go back to the bomb bay to check. Everything else you can see in here is the wiring and the plumbing that makes the jet actually work. Moving on down, we have the landing gear. Probably one of the more sophisticated pieces of equipment within the jet itself. Largest tires in the Air Force by aircraft. Also, because of the length of the wings, letting in a crosswind, the B-52 itself can't dip a wing into it to properly correct, so what it actually does is it will turn the body of the jet, so the landing gear will be facing down the runway while the jet is kind of cantered into the wind to land. This also helps with reducing a lot of the crosswind limitations that other aircraft would have. Doesn't necessarily apply to the B-52. As we continue the tour, we're into the business end of the jet, and in this, the bomb bay is where we carry everything that makes this one of the most feared platforms that's ever been conceived by man. Within here, we can carry 27 unguided munitions, 500-pounders to 750-pounders. If we need something more advanced, we're going to switch to a rotary launcher, at which point we're going to carry JASM 158 ground attack missiles, along with JDM as well. So that's going to be a GPS-aided munition. The bay itself is approximately 15 feet high by 10 feet wide. And that catwalk that I was talking about earlier, you see that little door, that's where the crew member would have to come in to check the bay if the cameras behind you did not work.
Hey Toronto, so my name is Captain Dave McKenzie from the 343rd Bomb Squadron, call sign SWAG. For the engines, TF-33, Pratt & Whitney TF-33s, 17,000 pounds of thrust per engine, and we got 8 of them, so we got a lot of thrust. Targeting pod for precision strikes. So right here we have our shaft windows, and to the tail end of the jet, that's where flares exit the airplane. I just want to give a quick shout out to my family in Toronto. They got Floyd Lofters and Marlon Hilton.
Major Kyle Holt, here to show you the cockpit of the B-52. We got 8 engines outside, so you need 8 throttles inside to be able to control them. We told you before about the landing gear that will crab for us so we can land. That's the controls right here for that. B-52 is old enough, it has a drag chute when we land. We pull this lever right here, a parachute pops up the back, helps slow us down. We have our control column for controlling up, down, left, and right. We've got our rudders, of course, for the yaw. Our engine instruments up here. We've got 8 across for each of the 8 engines. The landing gear handles up here. And then just lots and lots of buttons and switches to control pretty much everything. If we have to get out of the aircraft, rotate the handle, squeeze. This hatch will leave the aircraft, and then we'll leave going upwards in the seats. The 4 upstairs seats go up, and the 2 downstairs seats, as Major Humple told you before, they eject downwards.
Hey Toronto Airshow, this is Captain Aaron Walraven here from the 343rd Bomb Squadron. We're sitting in the downstairs compartment. Right now I'm sitting in the navigator seat, and over here we have the radar nav seat. So the navigator's job is to basically tell the pilot where to go and how fast to go. Their job is timing, whereas the radar navigator's job is to do the weapons over here on the weapon control panel, and to do targeting pod ops. As you can see, it's pretty dark in here. We don't have windows down here, and as Captain Humble said, on the outside we actually eject downward. Hi everyone, another fact about the B-52 is it can actually do long duration sorties. So my longest flight is 28 hours.
Got a 27.6.
26 and a half.
26.3 hours. So Toronto, unfortunately this year because of COVID, we're not able to be there in person or take this magnificent airplane with us. But hopefully next year, 2021, we will be there. And from a 343rd Bomb Squadron, to the Avengers.
Couldn't care less.
And thanks to the 343rd Bomb Squadron down at Barksdale Air Force Base, Shreveport, Louisiana. And of course, we wish all those in Louisiana a speedy recovery. By the way, Dane McKenzie, the weapons officer on that tour that we just saw, spent his summers vacationing in the Toronto area. He's looking forward to coming back to do that again, perhaps next year, and bring the B-52 with him. They are on the invite list, and again, as an insider at CIAS.org to this great event, you'll get all sorts of information on that and a chance to have discounted tickets next year as well. This air show has had significant history over 70 years now in Toronto. And a guy who has captured a lot of those moments in the more modern times is photographer Eric Dumigan. And of course, the fruit doesn't fall far from the tree. His father before him. Gracious in sharing not only his photography but some of his late father's as well. Richard Dumigan, who served in the Royal Montreal Regiment and had quite the eye. He loved aviation and photographing it and has kept some great records over the years. Eric, since 1988, has freelanced for Canadian, American, French, German, Australian, and British aviation magazines. He has published hundreds of articles and thousands of photographs as well, having images displayed in several aviation museums and businesses, and he's held quite a record when it comes to photographing the events down at the lakeshore these most recent years as well. Eric enjoys photographing everything from people to wildlife. He's great at that as well in everything he does with a camera. He and his wife are very, very good at this, and we are so happy that he has shared, again, not only his work, but his late father's work, Richard's, as well, as we just take a bit of a look back over some of the significant history of the 70-plus years of flying that has gone on here at the Canadian International Air Show. Thank you, Eric, for sharing not only your photographs, but your father's as well. Richard and Eric Dumigan giving us a great look back at over 70 years of history here at the Canadian International Air Show. The CN Tower is iconic to this event and the city of Toronto. You can also see the air show from that vantage point if you're brave enough to get out and do the edge walk. People actually get out and walk around the top of 550 some odd meters off the ground, over 1,800 feet high. So what does it look like from up there as you do the edge walk?
This is so cool.
That's wild, yeah.
Wow, this is awesome.
Yeah. That's a plus.
Wow. Wow. You picked an amazing day. This is awesome. What a good day to do the walk.
Nope. My fingerprints are still on the railings in the elevator going up into the CN Tower from my last visit. I'm not getting out on the edge. Again, just like Rick doesn't need to jump with the Skyhawks, it's not something I have the courage to do, but hey, go for it. It's a different vantage point, and it's very exciting to do, as you can see. Let's go tower to tower, because it's not the only iconic tower when it comes to the Canadian International Air Show. The other one is, of course, at Pearson.
Tower, MIP 7670 is with you on the ILS from 05. MIP 7670 target ACOS, trim up 787, land to the head, wind 110 at 4, third land number 05. 705, MIP 7670, check mark.
3603, exit Hotel 3, hold short of runway 15 left, the Mega's departing.
We have Vines, MiG-15, just airborne off 15 left, is heading into the air show.
BJ-18, you guys are just going direct to city center.
Oh, you guys had requested a circle around the tower before we headed south. Sounds perfect to me.
BJ-18, flight 99, direct to threshold of 6 left and direct city center.
To the city center.
Tiger 422 Tower, hello. You can proceed through Victor Papa to Victor for your departure. Left arm to your discretion. The altimeter 3024, the wind 120, 16.
Red Arrow 1 with 140, 16, then take runway 15.
Red Arrows 1, show radar 1180, have fun.
Show radar, many thanks, Red Arrow.
To the lakeshore.
Odd 01, the wind 090, 13 knots, show radar 18-0, airborne, clear takeoff, runway 15, left, that's hotel.
Thanks to Match Productions for that great video, and of course to NavCan and the entire team there, Can't do this event year after year without their help, and man, they're a big help. And the folks at the GTAA, the Greater Toronto Airport Authority. Not to mention that the de-icing facility where the military aircraft are parked as well. And I should point out that Toronto Pearson Central De-icing Facility is the largest and most advanced anywhere in the world. 65-acre footprint allows us lots of room to be able to move those aircraft around. So we very much appreciate the help of all of these organizations. And over at the other airport, too, this is a busy place to try and put on an air show, so cooperation is needed. Over at Billy Bishop, of course, Porter Airlines have been a terrific help as well. And of course, they are also hard hit in this pandemic. We hope to see them back in the skies soon with those quiet Q400s. But the folks over at Billy Bishop Airport and specifically at Porter have been a great group to work with, too, as we coordinate all of this airspace for the annual Canadian International Air Show. Our next segment provokes the question, if you had a building in which there were over 1,000 different whiskeys, why would you ever leave? Well, the answer is to fly. Gordon Price has had a lifetime of rewards, not only as a pilot, but also as a designer. He is all about aviation, whether it be commercial, flying for the airlines, or for the RCAF, flying the Starfighter. As a nuclear strike pilot, Gordon likes best to fly aerobatics, as he has done over the waterfront, sponsored by the pub that his daughter now runs, the Dam Pub up in Thornbury. Beautiful place to go, stocked with over 1,000 whiskeys, as I say. But his passion is flying, and even more so to inspire others to follow his steps. So we'll see the Yak 50, the airplane, the prototype for the famous aerobatic airplane, and then we'll get a rare glimpse to see Gord climb back into a Starfighter again and fly the 104. And consider that Gordon is 9 years older than this event. As he approaches the age of 80, he continues to share his lifetime of rewards, his passion for aviation. Our museums have been very hard hit through the pandemic. They raise funds by having people come in and visit their collections. The Canadian Warplane Heritage Museum in Hamilton has been no exception. They have reopened again now and are certainly worthy of a visit, if not just to see the masterpiece, the centerpiece of their collection, the Mynarski Memorial Lancaster. And right now they provided us with some beautiful video of that majestic Lancaster bomber in flight. Always so impressive and beautiful to see and hear the Lancaster, the Mynarski Memorial Lancaster from the Canadian Warplane Heritage Museum in Hamilton, Ontario. Worthy of a visit, especially now that they've reopened. All our museums, aviation museums, have been so hard hit through this pandemic. We hope you'll make the trip. Let's go from then to now in just a moment. Still to come, though, we have the RAF Red Arrows coming up. Chris Hadfield is going to share some thoughts with us. And, of course, the F-35 demonstration team from the United States Air Force. But right now, let's see the F-35 through a Canadian's perspective. The test pilot who helped develop this aircraft, Canadian Billy Flynn.
Hi, everybody. I'm Billy Flynn, Senior F-35 test pilot for Lockheed Martin. We're sorry we can't be there in person. I'd love to be back in my homeland to see everybody, but it's not going to happen during this COVID-19 crisis. Behind me, you can see that we're fabricating F-35s. We have created a safe work environment for our subcontractors and the men and women that build the F-35. We're building them, we're flying them, and we're testing them because the world hasn't stopped and our F-35 operators need to have this jet in the air to protect the men and women around the world. It is the most complex aerial vehicle ever made, and the precision it takes to fabricate an F-35 to ensure that everything works every single time is an enormous task, and we haven't lost sight of that goal even during the COVID-19 crisis. You know what's fascinating about the F-35 is that it has Canadian components in every F-35 ever built. That's jobs, that's sustained growth, that's high technology for for decades to come. And it's bringing Canadian industry standards at a level of technology never imagined before, certainly never in any legacy fighter program that exists. But the F-35 is a new generation. This is the F-35A, 5th generation stealth fighter, the most advanced combat fighter in the world today. So let's talk about some really interesting parts of this airplane. As a stealth fighter, it is almost impossible to detect in the air. And that is all generated by the geometrical shape of the airplane so that the edges don't reflect radar energy that otherwise would hit an aircraft and bounce back and be seen. That doesn't happen in an F-35. Every panel, every access that the maintenance technicians would have to get to has those jagged edges. And when we close it all up on every single day we fly, this aircraft becomes stealthy and undetectable. And why is that important? It's survivability. And everyone expects the men and women that fly an F-35 to come back every single time. And stealth is one of the biggest reasons why that will happen. So here are some of the interesting systems. It has a very sophisticated electronic sensor array, a radar in old days. There's 1,000 little electronic arrays right up here in the front of the aircraft. And they look everywhere around and see at the same time everything in the air and on the ground. This is the electro-optical targeting system. It's housed in a sapphire glass nose. It allows us to focus and zoom in on anything on the ground or in the air that we want to see with extraordinary fidelity so that we know exactly what we're attacking. Inside the aircraft, we can house a combination of many radar missiles or a combination of bombs and missiles. Once those weapon bay doors close and we're in the air, we don't have the drag and we're not less maneuverable like we were in legacy old aircraft where those bombs and missiles hung from the outside and slowed us down. This aircraft has a single engine built by Pratt & Whitney. It is the most powerful fighter engine ever developed and the most efficient. It's hidden in the back here. You see the jagged edges of the nozzle. 43,000 pounds of thrust. That's more than the thrust of the 2 engines of an F-18 in full afterburner we get from this single engine. Allows us to go 1.6 times the speed of sound, allows us to go further in the air or stay longer over our mission than any engine ever in history. This airplane holds nearly 9,000 kilograms of fuel. And what does that mean? Well, that again is more than all the fuel that can be carried by an F-16 or an F-18 or a Eurofighter Typhoon, even with all their fuel tanks hanging from the bottom of the airplane, which we don't have. And why is that important? Well, our missions are long distances from home. And for us to get to where we're going to do our mission, to do our patrols, we need the fuel to get us there. And once we're there, when we're actually doing the mission, that's why we want all that extra gas, to allow us to stay on station, to patrol, to surveil, to see everything around us. So now let me talk about the coolest part of the F-35. This is my helmet. So let's be really clear. This is as good as Tony Stark wore in the Iron Man and Avenger movies that we all love. It's the helmet for the F-35, and it does some really magical things. We have 2 cameras in the front, and they project images on this clear screen we see in front of us. It shows us how fast we're going, how high we are, what heading we are, and information about the weapons that we need to pay attention to. We feed in imagery from cameras just like this. This is the part of the distributed aperture system. There are 6 infrared cameras. The 6 cameras build a spherical round image about the airplane. And wherever I look, wherever I point my helmet, that hot and cold imagery is presented to me. Enough so that if I chose to look down between my legs underneath the aircraft, I would see all the imagery underneath me. And I'd turn nighttime into day. And the pilot in the F-35 all of a sudden sees everything around when otherwise it would be as black as imaginable. And that gives us the situational awareness. That gives us the safety as we fly the aircraft so that we know everything that exists wherever we fly. It is really as cool as any space movie we've ever seen. Well, that's our quick tour of the F-35, 5th generation multi-role stealth fighter. The future of fighter aviation now and for the many, many decades to come. Hope you've enjoyed the tour, seen some of the tech, and see why we think this is really, it's like a spaceship. Now remember, stay safe out there, mask up, and we'll see you soon.
Okay, that's pretty freaky, watching Billy take us around the F-35 Lightning II, and we get the mother of all storms in my region right now, but it's a virtual air show, so we're not going to get rained out or anything. It just doesn't matter, except for the fact that it's awfully dark in here. And by the way, Billy Flynn, thank you very much for the tour and all the best in your future endeavors. He just recently announced that he's moving on to another chapter in his life, consulting, and we wish him well, we really do. And the F-35 Lightning II from the United States Air Force, the demonstration coming up with Captain Kristen Beowulf. She is going to put the F-35 through its paces a little later in the broadcast as well. Next is one of our most popular civilian performers. We have lost count how many times Mike Wiskus has left his wonderful home and family in the Minneapolis-St. Paul, Minnesota area to bring the Lucas Oil Pit Special up to the lakeshore and buzz the boat amongst other thrilling things he does in the Lucas Oil pits.
The Toronto Air Show is really my favorite show. There's a number of reasons that I just absolutely love that show. But I'm going to start out with the people. And I remember landing at Toronto for the first time at the Island Airport, and the people coming up, and oh my gosh, they were just like handing you water and taking your bags and treating you like a king. It was like, I didn't get this done anywhere. This is the first time I got treated this way. It was really very flattering. I was a little surprised. But I thought it was kind of a show on what they were doing, but after I got to know them, I remember that first year, this is how they were. This is the kind of people that they are. And I came back the next year, and then I came back the next year, and then I came back the next year, and we have an airplane taking off right now. Hold on. As you can tell, we are at an airport. But I realized that that's just how these people are. These Canadians are just really friendly, and after I spent a little more time up there and to get to know these people, they weren't just people I was doing business with. These are really true friends that actually really cared for me, and we started having a lot of fun together and spent more time together, and actually it felt like family. I'm trying to think how many times I've done that show. It might be going on 20 times I've performed at Toronto. It's in that area, but I always look forward to doing that show. That truly is, honestly is, the best show I do every year. Another reason I like it is because of the stage. We're out over the lake, and if you've sat on the shoreline and you've looked out there, it's just beautiful. The water's beautiful. You've got another little island off to the left side, and then it's so short for me to just hop over from the island airport over to the show front that everything is so convenient and so nice. It's laid out so wonderful there. So a picturesque air show. If you ever want to call an air show picturesque, this is it. They also always have the fireboat. I love the fireboat. I don't really call it the fireboat when I'm out there. I call it the target. And I'm constantly between maneuvers using that as a target, going in on it, swooping them, throwing smoke down on them, and having a lot of fun. It is a 4-day show, a rehearsal Friday, performance Saturday, performance Sunday, and a performance Monday. So it's a long weekend, but it's a fantastic weekend. And if it wasn't for the people, I have to say that they are family to me. They really are. So when it comes to the Toronto Air Show, I want to thank them, everyone that's a part of that show. It's wonderful working with you. I wish I was there this year. This COVID thing's really messed a lot of us up. But I do plan on seeing you next year. And let's get together, let's have dinner, let's have fun.
Thank you, Mike, and indeed, we hope to see you next year again in the Lucas Oil Pits here from Minnesota. Mike Wiskus in the Lucas Oil Pits. And the target, as he described it, of course, Toronto Fire Services, William Lyon Mackenzie. The fireboat, been serving the city for 54 years. Commissioned in 1964, cost $660,000 at the time. They figure it would cost about $12 million to replace her now, and that makes it, of course, Canada's most valuable firefighting asset. The boat also works 24/7 through the winter months, and it works as an icebreaker, keeping the island ferries moving during the winter months. The pumping capacity, 40,000 liters per minute is what she pumps out. And the engine room, 6 Caterpillar diesels with a combined output of over 3,000 horsepower, weighs at about 150 tons. The top speed of the fireboat can achieve only 20 kilometers per hour, which means that target's never going to escape Mike Wiskus in the Lucas Oil Pits. And now it is my pleasure to get caught up once again with the RAF Red Arrows. They're back home over the pond, and they're going to join us now with an inside view of the team, and we'll get caught up on what's been going on since their return to the UK.
Good afternoon, welcome to RAF Scampton, where, as you can see, all the jets are in the hangar. It's a very different year in 2020 than it was 2019, where memories are really strong from our experiences in Toronto and the Canadian International Air Show. We had a wonderful time. We brought 12 of the Red Hawks over the pond. We got to Toronto almost exactly 12 months ago, and taking part in the air show was a real highlight for us. We got to fly with the Snowbirds, and in my back seat of this very aircraft 322, we had the astronaut Chris Hadfield, and just such evocative memories of our time flying over Lake Ontario, of which you'll see some of the amazing pictures, and our interactions with some of the other airshow participants to put on what I think was an incredible show. I know 2020 is going to be staged slightly differently, but I hope you enjoy the experiences that you get and some of the imagery that you might be able to see that you wouldn't otherwise have seen from watching it live and up front. And for us, what we've got is just those incredible memories of just the friends that we made. I've still got the hockey shirt that the Snowbirds gave me after that incredible formation flight that we took part in. And for me, those are memories that will go with me for the rest of my career. So it just pays to wish all of you very well for 2020, and hopefully 2021, where it all picks up again. We'll see you in the air soon.
As Red 1 pulls to the vertical with the red, white and blue smoke on, he calls the aircraft into short diamond. The smoke's changing colour. 6, 7, 8 and 9 tucking into our trademark position. The aircraft now transition to Concorde formation. Again, commemorating an anniversary, this time the 50th anniversary since the first flight of Concorde. As the aircraft pull up in Concorde, they transition to Cygnet over the top of the loop. The smoke changing, 8 and 9 moving out to the sides, seamlessly formating into the new position as they apex at 5,500 feet over the top of the loop. The aircraft come back towards us, the red, white and blue smoke comes on in one of our most technically difficult formation positions. It's Phoenix, with 6 aircraft flying in line abreast, red 6 and 7 tucked in behind. And now one of the most popular manoeuvres in the Red Arrows repertoire, it's Tornado. Reds 8 and 9 are tucked in behind the rest of the formation, the coloured smoke comes on. Here we see from Red 8's aircraft, Red 8 and 9 rolling around the rest of the formation. Red 1 about to bend the aircraft to the left, making 8 and 9's life even more difficult in Tornado.
Now tightening. Airbraking. Good. Pulling.
And now we have the 7 aircraft pulling to the vertical, Red 6 and 7 staying low in the palm split. As the palm tree forms, Red 6 and 7 start their dynamic second half manoeuvre, positioning for the first of their opposition passes, with 8 and 9 tucked in, 4 aircraft passing within 100 feet of each other. Here we have another favourite, as Red 9 with the blue smoke on comes straight down the middle of the other aircraft in the goose.
Go!
Now slightly sped up for this video, it's Red 6 and 7 pulling up and over the top for our trademark heart and spear. Look up to the top right as Red 8 comes down to spear the heart. In cockpit footage from Synchro now, as Red 6 and 7 roll inverted passing each other 150 feet down the runway, and we switch back to the rest of the formation as they're apexing the loop ready for the start of the vertical break. Red 1 communicating with Red 6 about the second half of the show as we get ready to switch back to the rear section. Red 6 and 7 about to roll inverted. Reds 8 and 9 will roll around them with the red and blue smoke on. This footage again from Red 8, he'll have Red 9 behind him with red and blue smoke on. Red 6 and 7 maintaining inverted down the line.
6, rolling out. Roll.
As corkscrew finishes, Enid, the front 5, come back in, Reds 2 and 3 with the blue smoke rolling around the rest of the aircraft.
Go!
Clear go they call, which is the signal for 4 and 5 to roll, the red smoke coming on as they retake their position. As the rollback's complete, it's now time for the show finale from the 2019 show. The red, white and blue smoke comes on for the Vixen break.
Great to get caught up with the RAF Red Arrows, Adam and Martin and the rest of the team. And Europe, like the rest of the world for that matter, Canada and North America, air shows have been canceled, but some starting back up now in drive-in formats, those who can do that. And they have been able to get some fly-ins over Europe as well. So good to get caught up with the RAF Red Arrows. In the 70-plus years of history at the Canadian International Air Show, the U-2 spy plane has made appearances, and it will on this virtual show as well. The Dragon Lady, of course, which started on planning back in 1953, first flight 1955. The Air Force still uses it to gather intelligence. NASA still uses it to gather information on the environment and atmospheric conditions. And right now we're going to give you an inside view of the U-2, the Dragon Lady. And now, something completely different. This was added to the Canadian International Airshow for 2019. Jeff Hewlett is the man's name, and he flies in a whole different way. Jeff works for Summer Water Sports, located in Muskoka, and offers not only amazing water ski shows, wakeboard shows, but also flyboard shows like this one. And yet, another item not on Rick's bucket list. But if, like Jeff Hewlett, you want to give it a go, like Jeff, knock yourself out. The Air Cadet Program, Canada's largest and I'll argue best youth program. Canadian International Airshow is proud to support the Air Cadets. In fact, some of our performers over the years have begun their distinguished careers as Air Cadets, and a couple of them would like to share those stories with us today.
Hello, my name is Lieutenant Colonel Tim Donor-Woods, and my story with the Toronto Air Show begins back when I was an air cadet, and I would make it out to the waterfront every summer to see the show. I later went on to get my pilot's license with the Air Cadets and join the Air Force, so you can imagine how exciting it was for me to return back to Toronto as the CF-18 demonstration pilot. That was in the summer of 2009, and that was a big year because we were celebrating the 100th anniversary of powered flight in Canada, which occurred in Baddeck, Nova Scotia with the Silver Dart in 1909. We opened the show that year. Chris Hadfield was flying the Golden Hawk Sabre, Greg Wiebe was in the Golden Centenaire, and we started with the 3 ship, and then I went into the CF-18 demonstration. And I wish everyone could experience flying that air demonstration down on the waterfront of Toronto because it's just beautiful. The CN Tower is right there, you are upside down over the island airport, it's just a thrill. But the highlight for me that summer was to meet up with Wing Commander retired Fern Villeneuve, who was 81 at the time, and he was the lead of the Golden Hawks, which the RCAF established to celebrate the 50th anniversary of powered flight. And they flew F-86 Sabres in the early days of jet demonstration teams, and they set the standard for all the jet demonstration teams to come. I had the honor of taking Fern up for a ride in the CF-18 in formation with the Sabre, flown by Paul Kissman, and Greg Wiebe and Dan Dempsey were in the Centenaire. Fern flew most of the trip, and his hands and feet were excellent to the day. We went out over Lake Ontario, and it was a very memorable trip for everyone on the flight that day. I kept up with Fern over the years, and unfortunately he passed away in December. He was an active pilot, flying his Globe Swift right up to 3 days before he died at the age of 92. I will always be grateful to the organizers of the Toronto Air Show for giving us the opportunity to celebrate the 100th anniversary of powered flight that year, and also to celebrate it with Fern. I know it's a letdown that we don't have an air show this year, but the way I look at it, it's just a well-deserved break for the Toronto Air Show organizers, and 2021 will be better than ever.
Hey everyone, my name's Aaron Grant, and I had the privilege of flying the Air Cadet glider in the show for 11 years. My aviation career started 14 years ago when I earned my glider license through the Royal Canadian Air Cadet program. I was lucky enough a few years later to be asked to fly in the show. It was absolutely one of the best experiences of my life. The flying itself was a blast, some of the most challenging and exciting I've ever done. But the best part by far was the people. Meeting amazing role models and the coolest pilots, and the family of airshow folks you can't wait to catch up with after a year away. From the performers to the phenomenal volunteers who are just as excited to be there as you are. And of course, the most rewarding of all was meeting the kids at Show Center and sharing in their excitement watching the best of the best do what they do. So we'll skip ahead to today, where what I fly is a little bit more complicated. Prior to the pandemic, I was flying the Boeing 767 for Air Canada, a total dream come true. But as we know, things went downhill pretty quickly for the airline industry, and the 767 was retired from the fleet with very little warning. So I've been flying my couch more than anything lately, but I am, however, very lucky to still be employed by Air Canada, and by the time you see this, we'll have started training to be a first officer on the Airbus 320. Last but not least, I'd just like to give a quick shout out to all my fellow aircrew and aviation professionals around the world who are struggling, whether it be with pay cuts, layoffs, furloughs, or the like. Doesn't matter what airline you work for or what airplane you fly, we're all united by a fierce passion for aviation that drives us. Don't let that fire go out. We will be back and we will fly again. For now, enjoy the virtual show.
The Canadian International Air Show, proud to support the Air Cadets. I began this segment by saying that some of our pilots began their careers with the Air Cadets. I meant to say most of them did. Canada's largest, and again I'll argue, best youth program. Billy Bishop Airport is pretty important to the operations of the Canadian International Air Show year after year. And one of the facilities over there in particular, which is getting an upgrade, has been very helpful too. Stoleport has been a great supporter of the Canadian International Air Show over the years, and for those who don't know them, here's a quick glance inside their facilities. Located in the heart of downtown Toronto, Billy Bishop Airport, newly renovated Stoleport FBO, the most convenient FBO in the city because you're right downtown. And just near completion in time for the winter season is the new facility. Visit stoleport.com to find out more. The Canadian Harvard Aerobatic Team have been a popular addition to the Canadian International Air Show over the past 20 years that they've been flying. And of course, Dave, Pete, and Kent will be included in our virtual air show as well. The Canadian Harvard Aerobatic Team. Pete, Kent, and Dave, the Canadian Harvard aerobatic team, and Dylan, Dave's son, providing that video for us. Another important part of the Canadian International Air Show each year is the Toronto Police Marine Unit. The Marine Unit is a partner and a lead in emergency response planning for the show. They work closely with the show organizers to ensure that every detail is prepared and reviewed annually. They also ensure that the air show's sterile box, aerobatic box, is kept free of vessels to keep the air show fans and the performers safe. They're responsible for policing the largest geographical area in the city of Toronto, encompassing approximately 460 square miles of open water on Lake Ontario. And this includes some 47 kilometers of shoreline and 14 beaches. The unit's fleet consists of 15 vessels, various size and purpose, and the City of Toronto sees approximately 42,000 plus recreational boaters pass through the Toronto waterfront region each year. Still ahead, Canadian astronaut Chris Hadfield shares some inspiring words with us, and the F-35 demonstration team from the United States Air Force is just minutes ahead. But right now, a performer who, well, when he's not pulling teeth, is pulling G's. Rick Volker, a new Canadian citizen born in the U.S. who maintains a dental practice in Niagara Falls, New York. Rick is a winner of multiple unlimited aerobatic contests and one of a few pilots alive to fly the Spitfire, the Messerschmitt, and the Hurricane, the three principal fighters of the Battle of Britain. He's currently the only pilot in North America that has flown the Messerschmitt Bf-109G and has flown about 40 different aircraft types. But what he really likes to fly is the Sukhoi you see him in now, the Su-26M. He has created a unique performance. Common theme to all his displays, complete mastery of the aircraft's possible flight envelope, pushing the boundaries of both low and high speed limits, and artfully utilizing the smallest three-dimensional space to create a masterpiece of entertainment. Rick Volker. And thank you, Rick Volker, again when he's not pulling teeth. Just the thought of that gives me a heebie-jeebie. He's pulling G's. And now it is my pleasure to hand things over to the F-35 demonstration team from the United States Air Force, Captain Kristen Beowulf, and the rest of her team.
Hey Toronto, Captain Kristen Beowulf here with the F-35A demo team. We hope you enjoy this virtual air show, and hopefully we'll see you in Canada next year. We put a lot of work into making these maneuvers and the ground show as professional and crisp as possible. We're trying to show you a little bit of what makes the F-35 unique, to show off what the maintainers do, and then also what the jet is capable of.
A great look at the F-35 and some shots of it, of course, at Pearson as part of the Canadian International Air Show. It made quite a splash. And Kristen, I saw what you did there with the snow. I get it. We just hope we don't get it just yet. It's still a few weeks away, mercifully. Thank the entire team, too, the demonstration team. Up in Utah, of course, the F-35 demonstration team from the United States Air Force. Now, we are enjoying your comments online, and of course, we've asked throughout the virtual show and even before to hear from the fans and submit some of your shots and your memories from the Canadian International Air Show, and you've done that, and we want to share some of those with you. And thank you for sharing your memories. We got thousands of them, and we can't use them all here, but keep an eye on our Facebook page where we intend to share lots more of them with you. One of our more popular performers, civilian performers, flew a very unusual airplane all the way to Toronto from British Columbia. We're talking about Kyle Fowler Go Easy Aerobatics in a Burt Rutan design, Long Easy, a very unique aircraft that Kyle's going to tell us a little bit more about.
Hi everybody, this is Kyle Fowler with Go Easy Aerobatics. Unfortunately, due to the times, we can't be live at the Canadian International Air Show this year in Toronto. Unfortunately, we do have the Canadian International Virtual Air Show. And with that, we get up close and personal with some of the show planes like this one here that we wouldn't otherwise see at the C&E grounds. And this is my funny looking little yellow airplane. As you can see, it's a lot different from a conventional airplane. My engine's in the back and essentially my tail is kind of in the front. Now, one of the really unique things about this airplane, people are always asking me, is the nose broken? Do you have a wheel under there? And there is a wheel under there, but I'll show you exactly why it is that I always have to park the plane on the ground like this. So when I get ready for my show and I have to get in, I literally have to pick my airplane up like this. I've got a small little hand crank for my gear, and then my gear comes out. And then once it's down, I just kind of hop on it like I'm hopping on a horse. And the reason I have to park it on the nose is that if I let go of it here, with the engine in the back and no pilot in the front, it'll tip over backwards. Whenever I'm done, crank it back up and set it down. I hope this has been fun for everybody, and hopefully we'll see you at 2021 for the Canadian International Air Show.
Thank you, Kyle Fowler, for a look at that unusual airplane and that very yellow airplane. Amelia Earhart was inspired to fly at this event while studying to be a nurse with her sister in Toronto. The 99s were formed, an organization of women pilots, in 1929, and she amongst them. 99 women pilots formed the 99s. The members of the 99s represent every aspect of aviation these days, and to quote Amelia, fly for the fun of it.
In Canada, Eileen Volek was the first woman granted her pilot's license in 1928. Women were becoming a force in aviation, risking their lives, thrilling audiences as daring wing walkers. They were barnstormers, hopping rides for $5, and they were flight instructors. Women were setting new altitude, speed, and solo endurance records. In August 1929, 20 women competed in the first ever Women's National Air Derby. At the end of the race in Ohio, the women expressed an interest in forming some form of an organization for female aviators. This new organization was for the mutual support and advancement of women pilots, and it was open to any woman with a pilot's license. Amelia Earhart proposed that their new name be a total of the charter members. A few months later, it was formally named the 99s. During World War II, in 1940, Britain formed the Air Transport Auxiliary, better known as the ATA. Female pilots included 5 Canadians. Vi Milstead and Marion Orr were from Ontario. They flew Hurricanes, Mosquitoes, Spitfires, and Trainers between the factories and the squadrons. In 1942, the United States formed the Women Air Force Service Pilots, WASP for short. In the years and decades after the war, the 99s have continued air racing, painting compass roses, flying as bush pilots, as a flight instructor, and flying water bombers. In 1974, Canadian pilot Rosella Bjarnson became the first woman hired as a commercial jet airline pilot in the world. Canada continued to lead the way when Dee Bressier and Jane Foster became the first women to fly CF-18 jet fighters in 1989. Today, members of the 99s continue to thrill audiences as airshow pilots. They're mentors. They promote aviation to the youth and adults while at shows such as the Canadian International Air Show. Today, the 99s are professional pilots for airlines, industry, and government. We're pilots who teach and pilots who fly for pleasure. We're pilots who are technicians and mechanics. But first and foremost, we are women who love to fly. The 99s around the world wish you all well, and we hope to see you next year.
The Canadian International Air Show over the years has focused on every aspect of aviation, commercial aviation, military aviation, search and rescue, and the list goes on. It also prides itself in giving young talent a chance and including the younger faces, the rising star in the schedules. And a fellow who's really made his mark in the industry in the last few years is Mike Tryggvason. He's based in Toronto, works for a major airline, and is as an instructor, and also likes to fly aerobatics in this Giles 202 purpose-built aerobatic airplane. And he's going to give us a real insider's look at his routine over the lakeshore.
Hey everybody, it's Mike Tryggvason here. Welcome to the Toronto International Air Show 2020. This is the virtual edition. I'm going to be walking you guys through my show from the 2018 year. You're going to see it from my perspective in the Giles 202. We staged at Buttonville Airport in 2018, and that was a really neat experience because we got to work with Toronto Centre coming into the showgrounds. They did a fantastic job. Here we go, dropping into the box. A couple of point rolls, opposite rolls on the downline here, building up all that speed that I need to maintain throughout the show. And straight into the vertical show center, and beginning a roll into a spinning tower. The maneuver's been around for a while, but it's a fantastic show maneuver. So as I'm rolling, just feeding a little bit of right rudder, a little bit more right aileron, and forward stick, and that just gets it into a knife edge tumble. Coming down with a flat spin, recovering with a flat spin, keeping the power on. This is one of the very few airplanes that you can do that with. Everything else you need to pull the power off to get out of the spin. The Giles has a ton of aileron, so it's a bit of a rare exception. Next maneuver, we're going to pull vertical on stage right. And I'm going to do 3 of 4 quarter rolls. 1 quarter, 2 quarter, 3 quarters. And this is going to kick into a hammerhead. Have a second just to catch my breath at the top here. There's a hammerhead kick, coming vertical down, and I'll do a 3/4 roll coming down. I was flying the 2018 show season at the 250-foot level, so the lowest I could fly was 250 feet above ground. As an airshow pilot, we have a graduated step-down program, so you begin higher than 250 feet and eventually get to 250, and the next from 250 is your unrestricted surface waiver. But it takes a little bit of time to get there, and in the meantime, you're building all the experience that you need to be safe. There's a roll with a loop with 2 rolls on the top there. Another awesome airshow maneuver. You got to keep the nose tracking around the loop while you're at the top. Here's a hammerhead, vertical up, full roll. There's a kick at the top, and a full roll coming down. You'll see that smoke just go 180 degrees. Excellent. Alrighty, back to level here. And 45 up. Quarter roll, gonna kick it into a tumble on this one, so right aileron, push, right rudder, and into a tumble where it's just shoulder rolling around a point. You shoulder roll around the 0G axis of the wing. That's the whole secret to a good tumble. That way it doesn't snap out on you. Leaving it at knife edge, or recovering into knife edge, and back to a looping section up. Gonna come around with a half cube in here with a couple of rolls on the down line, picking my down line, and then starting my rolls early, so I got tons of time. Again, with this 250-foot waiver, one of the key points is you need to let yourself, or give yourself time to learn, and that's a criticality. Here's a double roll. Oh yeah, look at that blur. The Giles rolls at 450 degrees a second, which is blindingly fast. It takes a fair bit of time to get used to, and that's why when you start flying aerobatics, you start in something like decathlon or a pit special. We go level. I'm going to be doing rolls and then opposite shoulder roll tumbles. This is a maneuver that came from Xavier Delaparent. He would fly this sort of maneuver in his free. There's a roll, and here comes a push micro loop. So where we go, airspeed's coming down to next to 0, and we just got full rudder, and we're just torquing around. And you see a full rudder there, just keeping the nose tracking where it needed to be. Just go stop to stop. Full roll coming down, smoke's back on, and away we go into the inverted pass. Inverted passes over water are pretty interesting. Water doesn't give you very good depth perception, so you have to be really careful about it. You can see on this rolling circle, I'm actually gaining altitude, and that comes from that competition background. I just kind of know what the feel needs to be and where I need the nose to track based on the horizon to make it a safe rolling circle, even though I don't have a lot of horizon reference getting out, pointing at the water there. Got one more pass here that I'm going to do. Just wave goodbye to everybody. Once we were finished up with the show site for the Toronto Air Show, Toronto Centre vectored us around and took us past Toronto Pearson Airport for a quick lap around the tower. That was super cool. Like, actually, one time in your career where you can actually buzz the tower, and I got to do it in a Giles. So that was just a phenomenal experience. Here we go, a little bit of a slipping pass, and we're out of here. Just as we're finishing up the flight here at the Canadian International Air Show 2020, I'd like to give a quick shout out to my sponsors. Without their support, none of this adventure would be possible. Big shout out to everybody. Thanks very much for your support. Have a fantastic time with the rest of the show. See ya.
The Canadian International Air Show always balancing that schedule with youth and, of course, experience, and diversity is also very important. Bill Shepard grew up a young black teenager in the Toronto area and was inspired to fly. He is now the director of operations at the Erickson Aircraft Collection in Washington. The Fanshawe graduate went on, of course, to fly warbirds with a passion and has appeared at the Canadian International Air Show. His favorite to fly, though, was the red-tail Mustang, so that he could share the story of the Tuskegee Airmen.
In front of you, in front of everybody, claiming it like it was his idea, our idea.
Well, that's how it sometimes works.
That's how it always works. Hey kid, what do you want to be when you grow up?
An astronaut.
It's cute, huh? Not likely. You gotta be somebody.
Or know somebody.
Yeah. Normal people don't get to do these things.
It doesn't have to be like that.
There were a group of Americans, not very long ago, that were told they wouldn't, that they couldn't amount to much in life. Those men became known as the Tuskegee Airmen.
The CAF Red Tail Squadron's long-term focus has been to bring the story of the Tuskegee Airmen into every classroom in America. In 2011, this goal was realized with the Rise Above Traveling exhibit.
I think this exhibit is valuable not only for curriculum if you're studying World War II, but it's also an important part of history in general, and teaching kids about groups of people who've overcome struggle can really fit into anything.
We didn't get together, go out and say, hey, we're going to go down there and set the world on fire. It was more collectively individuals seeking to do their best and accomplish the mission that was assigned.
The Rise Above exhibit centers around our panoramic mobile theater. Inside, visitors experience the inspiring story of the Tuskegee Airmen.
Oh, we were just doing what we were supposed to do, and you stayed with the bombers because if you didn't, B.O. Davis would be on your butt. And it was easier to deal with the Germans than to deal with him.
Field trips like this get the kids actually actively involved in their community and see what it does have to offer them. It also gives them time outside of the classroom to see what the world has to offer. I know all students appreciate field trips because they are educational.
The Tuskegee Airmen had obstacle after obstacle placed before them, limiting life's possibilities. The airmen persevered, succeeding through effort and excellence. The Red Tail Squadron looked to the Tuskegee Airmen and were inspired.
The movie was awesome. You know, it shows a different side, a different message that our students don't normally see. When our students walk in the door, they come in with so many different obstacles and barriers that we're unaware of. This just is another way that school districts can provide that message that they can rise above any situation.
Well, she's a real beauty, isn't she? By the way, you still want to be an astronaut?
Yes, sir.
You know, that's great. Over my years, I've learned that nobody can stop you but you yourself.
In addition to the history component, the Rise Above film takes the public aloft, allowing them a ride along in a P-51 Mustang. Not only does Rise Above educate with history and immerse one in flight, but visitors are imparted with the Tuskegee Airmen's principles of success.
Aim high, believe in yourself. Use your brain, never quit, be ready to go, expect to win. So basically it's saying, if you try your best, you can be successful in life. I think it's an awesome quote. I think if you follow it, you can do it.
A set of principles that all visitors to Rise Above are empowered with.
It tells me I don't have to give up even if it's hard.
It means never give up, like even if people tell you that you can't do it, you just keep on trying.
No matter how big your dream is, reach high for it so it comes true.
Whatever comes your way, be prepared to take it on. what's given to you as an opportunity, you have to take it.
They can go away from this and just be inspired. And now they know that I can go back and do anything. If they just follow those 6 principles that they learned, they can do anything that they set their mind to.
Aim high.
Believe in yourself.
Use your brain. Never quit.
Be ready to go.
Expect to win.
For more information about the Rise Above exhibit, please visit our website at www.redtail.org.
One of the most popular demonstrations at the Canadian International Airshow over the years has been one that is awfully difficult to book because it is unpredictable as to how much they'll be working come our weekend. And if they're not working in Canada fighting fires, they're sometimes working in places like California, as we have seen recently as well, as we like to help out our friends. Well, we're talking about the water bombers, Canadian assets specifically when it comes to the water bombers, the CL-215 and the Super Scooper as well. And, of course, all of the other assets from the Ontario Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry. And it is fun and thrilling to see them touch down in the water in front of the crowd and give a demonstration of what they can do. One of the best airshow acts on the circuit today is flown by Matt Yunkin in his vintage, his classic Beech 18. Now, Matt, we've seen in the sky during the daytime, but he has a whole different show that we could show you and share with you virtually here at the Canadian International Airshow because we can. That's the beauty of a virtual airshow, and that being his night show. In the darkness of night, this airplane is lit up beautifully and synchronized with music. In fact, I'll go to the cockpit right now so that Matt and his technician Jeff can tell you all about it.
Hi there, I'm Matt Yunkin and this is my crew chief Jeff Gibbs. We're coming to you from the cockpit of Magic by Moonlight, which you guys are watching a night aerobatic demonstration of as we speak. I'd like to give a special shout out to the C&E Air Show and thank you for all of the years that we got to participate in the past, and we look forward to coming back again after all this mess is over with. And with that, come on up front and let's see how the magic happens. So on the panel in front of me, I've got 21 switches and 2 rotary dials that I can use in the different combinations to choreograph the maneuvers for the night air show. Each pass is a little bit different, and I actually listen to the music as it's being broadcast live to the crowd and work the combinations of these switches for different visual effects. And that's how it works. So with that, I give it back to Rick.
Indeed, it is magic by moonlight. Matt gets to fly that impressive routine while Jeff, we saw in the cockpit with Matt, has to put all those lights on the airplane and then has to take them all off again for the day shows. Regardless, we want to see both of them at Toronto again for the Canadian International Air Show, so fingers crossed. Next year, by the way, you'll find out who's coming, and you'll get great discounts on tickets if you become an insider at CIAS.org, and you can get that done today, and then you'll be up on all the news pertaining to next year. You know, there are approximately 35,000 active skydivers across North America, but only 15% of them are women. Well, the Misty Blues, an all-women parachute team, has graced our shows in the past, and we're going to take a little visit and flight with them right now. Amanda, Bambi, Shay, Cindy, Brenda Kay, and Crystal, and I think I've got them all as they jump again from a perfectly working flying machine. The Misty Blues, all-women skydiving team, they had a ball when they jumped into the lakeshore, even if they did get wet. They really enjoyed themselves here, and perhaps we'll see them again sometime soon. Scott Yoke and Quicksilver, his P-51. They were supposed to be here this year, and hopefully we'll see them next year, but we're going to see them virtually right now.
Hey Toronto, Scooter here. It's really bummed we weren't going to be with you guys this year in 2020, but I'm really looking forward to flying for all of you folks in 2021.
Scott and his dad, Bill, an individual with a love and a passion for this type of aircraft, did all the metal work in the restoration of this airplane. The remanufactured parts are handmade. Unlike the hurried war effort parts, these are made with the skill and the care of a master craftsman and obtain the utmost attention to detail necessary to restore this Mustang to a condition better than factory new in 1945. This airplane is built from about 200 different aircraft, P-51s, and it is flown beautifully by Scott Yoke, Bill Yoke's son. We call him Scooter. Scott Yoke and his beautiful P-51 Mustang he calls Quicksilver. Chris Hadfield is no stranger to the Canadian International Air Show. Chris is no stranger to any Canadian, really. Chris Hadfield joins us now.
I think, as human beings, we have always dreamed of flight. I picture the very first shepherds tending to their flock, but looking up at the birds and wondering what the birds must see and envying the freedom that those birds have in 3 dimensions. Our earliest history, if you look at what Daedalus built for Icarus to be able to try and fly like no one ever had before, Da Vinci's designs for aircraft, what the Montgolfier brothers watching their fire in their fireplace and seeing the sparks rise in the middle and thinking, wow, if we could somehow, because they were a family that made fabric, if we could somehow contain whatever it is that's making those sparks rise inside a big ball of fabric, maybe we could fly like the birds fly. And they first started leaving the earth in the late 1700s. And then Otto Lilienthal, who did work with gliders, hurling himself off the side of slopes and hills and cliffs, trying to figure out all of the mechanics that might make flight work, until we brought it all together in 1903 when our engine technology had just gotten good enough and the Wright brothers were able to put their bicycle making technology to work in how to build an airplane. And in December of 1903 on the slopes of Kitty Hawk, actually having controlled powered flight. And in Canada, the same thing with Alexander Graham Bell and his team at Bedeque in Nova Scotia in Cape Breton, and J.A. McCurdy climbing into the Silver Dart in February of 1909, 111 years ago, and controlled flight here in our country. All of those people were inspired by the birds. They were enabled by technology. They saw what was happening and they applied the best of their abilities, and they pushed back the inability of us to fly and turned it into what we now almost take for granted. But for me, it wasn't the birds that inspired me. It was other aviators. I was lucky enough to grow in an aviation family. My dad started out as a farmer, but then he became a pilot, a private pilot, and then a commercial pilot, and then an Air Canada pilot. He was also the Canadian national champion at aerobatics. And both my brothers are Air Canada pilots. My older brother Dave is also an instructor and a pilot of so many different types of airplanes. Just last week, he flew a Lysander and a P-40 and a Spitfire all in 1 week. And to me, that capability, that normalcy of flight helped shape what I was doing. I joined the Air Cadets when I was 13. They taught me to fly gliders just like Lilienthal and powered airplanes just like J.A. McCurdy. And then I joined the Royal Canadian Air Force and trained through Portage La Prairie and Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan and Cold Lake, Alberta, until eventually I was a fighter pilot. And I was the very first CF-18 to intercept during the Cold War, to intercept Soviet bombers that were in Canadian airspace. flying the cutting edge of technology right to the very edge of what we could do with it. And then I went to test pilot school, worked as a test pilot with the US Air Force and the US Navy, testing airplanes and putting them out of control and testing hydrogen burning engines. And all of that, my dreams, started coming together in 1992 when I was selected as one of Canada's astronauts. And incredibly enough, this little kid who was inspired by air shows, who sat on the grass early in my life and watched airplanes doing things that I just couldn't imagine. Watching the group of airplanes that was actually put together in order to celebrate 50 years of flight in Canada, the Golden Hawks. Watching the beautiful Canadian-made Sabres flying so gracefully and seemingly inevitably beautifully together. It just captured my imagination. And that same little kid who sat on the grassy hill and watched air shows in Canada had a chance to fly as part of the flight crew of a space shuttle twice, and to eventually fly as the pilot of a Russian spaceship, of a Russian Soyuz. But perhaps the greatest flying experience I've ever had was to do Canada's first spacewalk, to put on one little person-sized flying machine, pull myself out into space, and truly, in 3 dimensions, soar and fly like perhaps those shepherds first imagined, or what Da Vinci was thinking about, or what all those other aviators were dreaming they've had a chance to do. And for each of us, it all starts somewhere. And for so many young Canadians, it started at the Canadian International Air Show, to sit and watch all that powerful magnificence, that movement in the 3rd dimension, that ability to do something that seems just as impossible as it did to the shepherds 10,000 years ago. So thank you very much to the Canadian International Air Show for all that you've shown us over the years. This year is a year like no other. It's maybe a good chance to not just look around at what, but actually think about why and the wonder of it. I look very much forward to flying in the air show, but also to watching it in the years to come, and to help and be one of those people that sits there and looks up in wonder.
Thank you, Chris. Always inspiring. Another Canadian who inspired many we tragically lost this year. Jen Casey, Public Affairs Officer with the Snowbirds. A new bursary has been set up in her name in her honor at King's College, where she graduated from as a journalist. The Captain Jen Casey Memorial Journalism Bursary will help cover the university costs of a journalism student at the school. Jen worked as an anchor and reporter at News 95.7. And after moving to Ontario, she was an anchor and a reporter for Quinte Broadcasting in Belleville before joining the Canadian Armed Forces, serving as a public affairs officer with the CF-18 and then finally with the Snowbirds. She graduated from King's College with her Bachelor of Journalism in 2011. If you would like to contribute to that bursary, it would be welcome. And please just use the link you see on the screen now to make that donation. The Snowbirds, for 50 of the 70 years of history at the Canadian International Air Show, have always been our closing act. Today will be no exception as we dedicate this to Jen's memory and to our Snowbird friends. And a heartfelt thank you to the Snowbirds, our final act in this, the first and hopefully last virtual air show. And of course, the Snowbirds, for over 50 years now, the 70 years of history of the Canadian International Air Show, have been that closing act. We hope to see them again next year. And now I'll introduce you to Laurie Duthie. She is the Executive Director of the Canadian International Air Show. Laurie?
Hi, Rick. What a great day for an air show.
Yep, weather doesn't matter when it comes to a virtual air show.
I wanted to start by thanking all of the frontline workers who've been working tirelessly these last 6 months to keep things going. We are certainly appreciative of all of their work in this crazy year, and we're really looking forward to 2021. In fact, we've already begun our plans for the 2021 air show. As you know, the performer announcements from the military demonstration teams don't come out until December, but in the meantime, we've been working on a lot of changes down at the waterfront. We're going to be introducing a new price point that's hopefully going to make it a little bit easier for families to come and enjoy the air show within the exclusive air show zone. As well, we've got a lot of new exhibits that are going to be coming next year. And we're really excited about a new behind-the-scenes access that our guests are going to have to what's going on at the airports. So stay tuned for a little bit more on that later in the year.
How do people keep up on all of this information?
As you mentioned earlier, Rick, we highly encourage our airshow fans to sign up as insiders on our website. They're going to be the first to receive the performer announcements as we confirm acts throughout the year. They're also going to get the greatest discount rate. So before our May 2021 ticket launch, they're going to get the greatest discounts sent right to their inbox. And in addition, we received a lot more footage for this virtual air show than we could put. We'd be watching this show for another 6 or 7 hours if we'd included everything. So we are putting together some bonus footage that we'll be sharing with our insiders over the next 12 months. So if you like what you saw today, sign up so that you can receive a little bit more.
And any last thoughts?
I wanted to thank all of our volunteers who I know we're all missing being together this weekend, but I know that we will be together next Labor Day weekend. And a very special thank you to our volunteer, Alex Glahushkin. He produced all of today's virtual air show, and we are so grateful for all of his hard work. Thank you, Alex. And lastly, a very special thank you to all of our air show fans. We have loved receiving all of your comments and messages of support through these last 6 months, and we especially love it when you tag us in your photos from previous air shows. So thank you so much. Continue to share those great images and great videos, and we cannot wait to see you next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Laurie, and thank you, Alex. I want to reiterate that one. Alex has been pushing all the buttons and taking on the workload of all these videos and making all of this happen today, technically. Thank you so much for your support, Alex. And to you watching at home or wherever you're watching from. And we hope to see you down on the lakeshore next year for the Canadian International Air Show. No virtual stuff anymore. Stop dreaming. Start flying. Thanks for watching.